Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Column EDC Coffee Chat, Coffee with Colleen. We're happy to have Sam Grello on today with us. He is the Executive Director of the Port Angeles Waterfront District. A few items before I hand it off to him, and that is, if you'll keep yourself on mute. I've tried to mute everyone here except for Sam, and so that we don't inadvertently pick up puppies barking or children yelling or spouses yelling. And if you have any questions for Sam, we like to keep it interactive. Please either raise your hand and we'll call on you, or alternatively, if you would like me to ask your question, just write it in the chat and I'll do that. You can send it to me directly or just to everyone in the meeting. So with that, Sam, thanks so much for joining us. I'm not surprised we have a smaller group, since I know you were on PBIA yesterday giving them a presentation. But it's great to get this group and folks that weren't able to attend an opportunity to hear what the Waterfront District has been doing and has been up to. So with that, please take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Colleen. And those of you guys who are joining us today are in for a treat. This is definitely a different presentation from yesterday. I will be talking about Main Street. So bear with me while I share the screen. And Colleen, please don't be shy. Interrupt me when I'm talking. I don't always look at the hands up and stuff like that. So it's not rude.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
All right. Great. Is this full screen for you guys?
Close enough.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, actually, now we show the next slide in your notes.
Oh, the end of it? Okay. 1 second, folks. Awesome. Great.
We are seeing your notes and next slide.
Okay.
I think display settings. I think the top display settings.
There we go. All right, how does that work for you guys?
Yep, perfect.
Wonderful. All right, so thanks for that little bit. Today we're going to be talking about Main Street. Right now the Waterfront District is doing a Main Street application where we're looking to join the Washington State Main Street program. So I want to talk a little bit about the Waterfront District, what our vision statement is, how we're being funded now. Then kind of going into the Main Street approach, what that is as a tool for our community that we can use, and then kind of circle back around to Elevate Port Angeles, which is the informal group that has created the Waterfront District and has been leading a lot of these efforts. Then we'll talk about Main Street communities in Washington and examples that they can provide for all of us. And we'll get into the meat and potatoes of why we're doing this, which is the B&O tax credit program. And then we'll get into Main Street boundaries that we're discussing, proposing. Love to get input from all of you guys on this as well. And we'll bring it back to the Waterfront District again and talk about the current parking business improvement area, geographic boundaries, and if those are also going to be changing. And we'll wrap up in about 30-35 minutes. And so then we can have a robust conversation about Main Street or anything else that the Waterfront District is up to right now.
Great.
So sorry to start with a big block of text like this, but I did want to read what our vision statement is. I think it's just kind of important to be aware of where the Waterfront District as an organization is and like what's guiding us. So this is from our bylaws on our first page. The Port Angeles Waterfront District envisions an attractive, safe, and comfortable downtown business district that is considered unique and desirable destination for local residents and visitors alike. That part's important. Port Angeles Waterfront District believes that the downtown business district should be the heart of the community, inspired by its gorgeous setting, friendly people, fun activities, and a base camp offering numerous cultural and entertaining programs, and a gateway providing meaningful connections to the incomparable variety of nearby adventures. So basically, this is saying that we believe that Port Angeles is the city of the Olympic Peninsula that provides city services for the Olympic Peninsula. And, we want to help improve our neighborhood, not just for tourism, but for current residents, and to make it an attractive place to bring new residents here. Like, why move to Port Angeles in 2025? Because we have a bustling downtown, right? We want young families in this community, and this is one of the ways that we see we can be doing that. How are we funded this year? So this year we've got a collection of grants and an assessment fee that we collect that is able to pay for me and pay for some of the services that we are providing for the Waterfront District. So we received a city lodging tax grant last year, Clallam County lodging tax grant, a Washington State Commerce grant to help the city with their comprehensive plan update that we're able to utilize for our operations. We signed a contract with the city to administer the parking business improvement area that exists over our downtown core. This was established in the late 80s. And so businesses that operate within this area are charged an annual fee that is billed quarterly. And that money makes its way to us. And we provide services ranging from helping with things like Second Saturday Art Walk, throwing cleaning events like the Big Spring Spruce Up this past Saturday, having informational classes with either our downtown resource officer, or we've got a digital marketing 101 class coming up for merchants downtown, things like that. And lastly, we are funded by sponsorships. So we got a nice sponsorship from First Fed for the Big Spring Spruce Up. We're always looking for sponsors for our events. So if you're interested in getting your name in front of the good work that we're doing, let me know. We are for sale. So, this is where our money is coming from for this year. But it's not sustainable. Oh,
yeah, I was going to ask Sam, with all the extreme budget cuts, especially with economic issues and Department of Commerce, are you anticipating that the Washington State grant will not be available beginning July 1st?
Yeah, so that Washington State grant was a one and done.
Yeah.
And so we have received some other one and done Washington State grants. We have a $50,000 grant we're dealing with this year to help with some planning for a parking lot downtown, Lot B, for ways to reuse that in the off season. But most of our operational money does come from the PBIA and the city and county lodging tax. And so in regards to next year, we're not so concerned about the possibility.
PBIA? Sorry, what's PBIA?
So the PBIA is the Parking Business Improvement Area.
Okay, got it.
And so that's existed here in Port Angeles since the 80s. The Port Angeles Downtown Association, which no longer exists, but when they did exist, they had the contract with the city to receive that fee. And so now we receive the assessment from businesses, and we receive that on a quarterly basis. So we do anticipate in the, we will be applying for city and county lodging tax dollars for next year as well, as we wait to be admitted into the Main Street program. Main Street has a new funding mechanism that I'll get into a little bit later in this presentation, that will make us a sustainable organization. So, right now we can't long-term rely on city lodging tax dollars and county lodging tax dollars. We are doing good work right now to make this a more desirable place for people from out of town to visit. And so we fall within the lodging tax, like what they fund, right? They're all about getting heads and beds into our county and into our city. And the Waterfront District is working on that right now. But as an organization, long-term, we're not just about driving tourism to our district. So we can't rely on funding that's, about tourism and about bringing heads and beds in here long-term. The boards change for the city and the county. So right now, we have goodwill with our community because of what we're doing. And, hopefully that won't change, right? But that's part of that. Sorry.
So Sam, Darlene had a good question in the chat. She said the Main Street program, what's the east, west, and south boundaries? We know the north boundary, Waterfront.
Yep. So we're going to get into that later in this presentation.
Okay.
And that's something that I want to kind of open up to discussion for everybody, because we're determining the boundaries of Main Street right now. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one for one to what the Waterfront District is. All right. Am I still sharing the screen?
You sure are.
Okay, great. So let me go back to the meeting here. Great. All right. So something about, so looking at ways that we can fund our organization, the parking business improvement area assessment fee rate, it was set back in the 80s. So if you are a business, and it's based on what the square footage is for your unit within the PBIA. So if you are a under 1,000 square foot office, you have to pay $160 a year to be doing business within the PBIA. If those numbers, if the rate had been tied to inflation, that rate would be around $450 to $500 today. Obviously, you look around, we cannot raise those rates right now. There's no desire from our businesses about that for a number of reasons, right? There are too many new fees on small businesses right now as it is, right? There's a new city business license fee. There's a new fire inspection fee. There's the potential that taxes are being raised at the state level as well. So this is the wrong time for a new nonprofit that is still proving itself to the community to have our hand out asking for money. Are you kidding me? Bye, see you later. I don't want to talk to you. So, that's just the reality of what our situation is. So we're like, okay, we can't look towards, our membership base, which is like what our paying PBIA members are, to be funding us. So there are other ways to do that. All right. And Main Street is a big way to do that. So Main Street as a program began in 1980, Main Street America. And so this happened, there was a think tank, the 70s happened, a bunch of people left cities to the suburbs, and downtowns became really depressing places where you wouldn't want to go. You wouldn't want to spend time there. You wouldn't want to buy anything there. You wouldn't even really want to drive through there. You'd be driving on the highway that bypassed downtown, right? So a lot of folks recognized that there was an issue with downtowns across America. So they created this program called Main Street America that is a preservation-based economic development tool. Essentially, it is, recognizing that main streets are, downtowns are important. They have a lot of assets, in history and the buildings that have been built that are there. So, there's no reason that these should be disregarded areas. And there's must be a way to revitalize them. So Washington Main Street program began just a couple years after Main Street America. And so there's a relationship between the two programs. Washington Main Street is a coordinating program for Main Street America. They began in 1984. In 1985, Port Townsend joined the Main Street program. So we have a local Main Street that has been doing it as long as it has existed. And they're a really shining example. We'll be talking a bit more about them later. But so the Main Street approach is all about revitalizing a downtown commercial district by leveraging local assets, both people and buildings and things like that. There are a lot of benefits to being a Main Street community. Like there's some hassles too. There's more paperwork on my end. But why would we want to do something like this, right? The networking is really amazing. The historic downtown cores throughout the United States have very similar problems. Almost every historic downtown has vacant second floor space. How do you turn this space alive, and get a certificate of occupancy when the energy code has changed so much and you're trying to change the usage of a space? Things get prohibitively expensive immediately, right? This is a problem that is not unique to Port Angeles. It is an issue that exists across the country, and there are a lot of really smart people that have thought about solutions to this. But, how do you access their thinking and what they've, the solutions that they've already come up with? Another big problem with historic downtowns throughout the United States, we have disengaged property owners of blighted properties. Usually these are folks that own buildings. They've inherited the buildings from their parents or even their grandparents. They don't know what to do with it. They assume there's some intrinsic value to the property. But they think that, oh, the downtown's about to develop. I'm just going to sit on this property for a couple of years and it'll become super valuable soon. That's a problem. That's a really bad mindset for downtowns. And when you have blighted properties like that, it affects your neighbors and it affects the downtown. So how do you deal with that, right? So the problems in all of these downtowns are unique, but the solutions do rhyme. And so there's a lot of value to seeing how other communities that are dealing with similar issues, even though Port Angeles is a unique nut to crack, right? How have other people dealt with this stuff? Another benefit to being a Main Street community is advocacy. So every year they put out a little policy book on policy suggestions at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. And these are really good policy recommendations. So when, as a Main Street executive director, I'm talking to my local representatives or my federal or state representatives, I can speak intelligently and try to advocate for policy that will benefit our neighborhood. Whereas, before getting sent this and reading it over, I wouldn't necessarily know, what I should be advocating for with our legislators at these different levels. Excuse me. And then finally, the biggest benefit to the Main Street community, and honestly, the reason that we're doing this, is the Main Street Tax Credit Incentive Program. And I'll get into that in a slide or two here. But this is the way that we get funding and we're able to, get some actual, financial power and, in my opinion, a little bit of dignity from Olympia. So what are the Main Street community requirements? You have to be a 501c3 or a 501c6 nonprofit corporation with a sole mission of revitalizing a historic downtown commercial district. That's us. We're a 501c6 nonprofit, and our sole mission is to elevate downtown Port Angeles. So check. We have to have and use a strategic action plan that incorporates the Main Street approach, and I'll get into that in a second. Our approach has been the Elevate Port Angeles approach. You have to have a full-time paid executive director. The director must attend annual conferences and submit quarterly reports. So, one of the big things about Main Street is really pushing that there is coordination between these different small communities. There is a lot of value in that networking. It's just good problem solving. And then finally, you have to maintain program boundaries with at least 50% of the buildings being 50 years of age or older. So, by that definition, basically all of Port Angeles could be a Main Street community, right? That's not what we're looking to do. But it is going to affect a little bit, what boundaries we're looking at. And, we will be going out to the community to talk about this a little bit as well. So this is the 4 points approach with Main Street. Those of you who have been to Coffee with Colleen chats in the past and have heard folks talk about Elevate PA will recognize a lot of this, right? So, it's about the authentic design of a community. What is the infrastructure like? What's the vibes like? What does it feel like to be, walking down the streets? Are the sidewalks grimy? Is there trash and weeds on the sidewalks? Or is it clean, The promotion is about authentic promotion. What's the sense of place? Where do you exist? So Port Angeles has a history of logging. We have a history with the tribe. We have, the second federal city. There are all these things, right? We have the relationship with the Coho and Victoria. And so when we did that big PA Loves Canada event back in February, that's an example of authentic promotion, stuff that can only happen here in Port Angeles, right? Economic vitality, how many storefronts are open or closed? Are there entrepreneurs? Is it a bunch of, corporate shops? Is it small business? So that's speaking to economic vitality. And last is outreach. Do we have an engaged public? Do we have volunteers showing up to our volunteer events? Do we have people to sit on our committees? Is there even interest in revitalizing your downtown, right? And thankfully, we can say about Port Angeles that people are very interested in the revitalization of our community, right? Sometimes like a little bit too much on Facebook, but you get what you get. So to talk about Elevate Port Angeles really quickly, this was formed in late 2019 after recognizing massive private investment on the Port Angeles waterfront, something to the tune north of $140 million. These are all the projects that, are in various states right now. So, Field Hall is done. The Marine Discovery Center is breaking ground next year. The wharf has been converted. Red Lion is still undergoing their renovation, right? And then there are a couple of projects that are, still in the works and still a little bit in the planning phases. They haven't broken ground yet. So we have the Elwha Hotel site. We've got Anian Shores, and they're going to start selling their condos later this summer, which is exciting, right? So there are all of these big projects that we're getting going in 2019, and folks recognized that, there is a lot of good sense in getting together and sharing information about our plans. There's opportunity for synergy. There's opportunity for collaboration, and, just not pushing against each other, right? So the only constant in life is change. It's going to happen. Doesn't matter if you plan for it or not. So you might as well plan for it. And that was kind of the ethos of Elevate PA. How can we, jump onto all of this natural positive development that's happening and help guide it just a little bit so that, we wind up at the end of this development push with some kind of a cohesive downtown, something that feels like it makes sense and isn't just scattershot with, new developments in between historic buildings. After the, all of the stakeholders met, they opened it up to the community. They surveyed over 700 people in town, and they used those inputs to create a 5-year strategic action plan to revitalize downtown. And that was Elevate Port Angeles. So some of you may have seen this image here on the right-hand side. So Elevate Port Angeles is a very similar tool for revitalizing a downtown as Main Street is, which has been very convenient for us as we are, applying to become a designated Main Street community. We don't have to rejigger how we're doing things. This works. We are already doing the Main Street approach. We have been doing the Main Street approach since 2019, which is wonderful. So really now it's just about me filling out some extra paperwork, which is great. Talking a lot about Main Street communities, it might make sense just to look at a map here for a second. So right now, I was able to get us back as a Main Street affiliate, which just opens us up to more networking opportunities. which has been valuable for me, but for the community at large, they're not seeing so much from that. Really, when we become a designated community publicly, folks will start to see the changes that are going to be happening. Sequim is also an affiliate community, as is Bremerton, and those are the two closest affiliate communities. Sequim is on track. They want to become a designated community as well. They've got more work to do on that than we do. Bremerton is also in the process of becoming a designated community. They're not applying this year, though. Looking to designated communities to start to dream a little bit on, what could we be doing here in Port Angeles? Here are some of our closest designated communities. Port Townsend truly is like a shining example of what a Main Street can do. We are copying a lot of their playbook on how we're going to be bringing back hanging flower baskets downtown. Where we as an organization will be doing it. It will not be the city of Port Angeles. They will not be involved. And so, we have a funding mechanism to do that. And it's based off of how Port Townsend Main Streets does it. Coopville has a really good Main Street that funds a lot of public art. Mount Vernon's, I didn't mention on here, but Mount Vernon also has a very good Main Street program. They have created consignment retail shops as a way to help bridge the gap between farmers markets and entrepreneurs having their own individual brick and mortar stores. So there are, we have some local designated Main Street communities that are doing some really cool, interesting entrepreneur development programs that I'm really curious about and learning more about too. So Oak Harbor is doing a really good job with their Main Street as well. They've been getting more parades. So these are just really good places to go driving if you're ever bored and you're like, well, what could Port Angeles become when you're looking at the services of a commercial district? These are places that we're looking at.
So why, you said Squim has more work to do. What does Squim need to be doing?
They need to create their committees. So, to be a Main Street community, you need to have a committee, a dedicated committee for each of the 4 points: for authentic promotion, for welcoming design, for economic vitality, and for sustainable design. And those groups each need to be working on specific projects that they're pushing forward. That is a lot of work to get, we're talking about at least 20 volunteers, and so, each committee needs a couple of people, and typically we found 5 is a pretty good number. It doesn't get too big or too small. You have enough people contributing ideas without fighting, having too much fighting, but to have a volunteer group, coming up with ideas and then executing those ideas is a big effort and it's a big push. Because nobody wants to be voluntold what to do, right? We're all busy. And so if you're a volunteer, you need to have some ownership over what you're doing. And so our volunteers do, and we have really good committee chairs who are able to guide that process so they don't go off in a left field like crazy. That's why our 5-year strategic action plan is so valuable to us, because that's a little bit like our Bible. We can always go back to it. All right, does it fit our action plan? Is it one of our 64 points? If it isn't, we're getting a little bit off mission. And sometimes we can get a little bit off mission, but it's really important that we stick to what our strategic action plan is. We're coming up on the end of it. We'll be redoing it at the beginning of 2026, to update it, remove items we've already completed, put new items on. And so SWIM doesn't have that yet. They're working on going there, but that's a whole process to engage with the public, because that just can't come from on high, from like a nonprofit board of directors and what their thoughts are on what the community needs and what the community needs to get there. That truly is a community process. You have to solicit input from the public at large, which can be painful, quite frankly, but it's important and it is necessary, because otherwise, how do we have any buy-in from the community? It's that, like, and that's really important, because like you can't just have a bunch of super busy type A folks working towards transforming a community without getting the community involved. And so SQUIM is working on getting their action plan going. And that's really exciting. And so we wouldn't be able to pivot so quickly into applying to become a designated Main Street community if we hadn't essentially been doing the Main Street way since 2019. So it really is about 6 years of effort, even though it has been called Elevate Port Angeles. And so that is really a gift that has been given to us by the Chamber of Commerce and Jim Hagwood and the folks that created Elevate PA, is that it has set us up for such success, which is awesome.
So Sam, there's a couple questions in the chat. This is a good one from Pat McCauley. Did you survey people from outside of town who might shop in town? And I don't mean tourists. I'm talking about Forks and SQUIM residents. How do they see Port Angeles, and how does it compare to the wants and needs of Port Angeles residents?
I think that was maybe asking about when Elevate PA was surveying folks. I'm thinking that's where the question's coming from.
Okay.
So definitely people from SQUIM were surveyed. We put out the calls a couple of different ways. I believe something went into PDN, and then we surveyed folks on Facebook. And then we had a couple of live get-togethers at the Vernon Burton once, like in the first or second phase of COVID opening back up again, just to give you like timeline wise. But no, we did not go out to Forks or folks like generally out in the county and specifically ask them if those folks were on Facebook and using social media, like Port Angeles social media. They would have seen, the call for their input. Okay.
The next question is from Paul Gottlieb. What specific projects might Main Street engage in? Also, please expand on the impact of the 15% drop in coho ridership in downtown Port Angeles.
Well, so to start with the Main Street question, there are a lot of different projects that we're looking to do. So, we just did a little mural festival. It's become a mural initiative. So bringing more public art downtown, like improving the aesthetics of downtown, is one of the things that, is important for us. It's also a low-hanging fruit. So that's a big project. Another big project is addressing our building vacancies. So, there are a lot of different ways to skin a cat, and, no building is vacant downtown for the same reason, right? And so, no one solution is going to work for everybody. So there are different ways that you can go about addressing that. So that's another thing that we're working on. Things like bringing hanging flower baskets back downtown. The Haynes Welcoming Vista is also one of our projects that we're working on, and that's a long-term one. That's like a 10-year project. So we're a neighborhood association, but we're a little bit more than that because we are pushing for revitalization. So like right now, we're very much kind of an entrepreneurial nonprofit where we're doing a lot of one-off things, and we're seeing, what is getting, either bringing tours in or bringing Port Angeles residents in who claim to have not been downtown in the last 10 to 15 years. We view both of those as wins. And honestly, I'm a little bit more excited when I bring a Port Angeles resident that lives up in the hills back downtown after, swearing it off, 5 to 10 years ago. So that's, those are some of the Main Street things that we're doing, a pet parade, things like that. It's, reasons to be coming downtown. We're having a Mother's Day sidewalk sale this upcoming weekend, a lot of things like that. And then when it comes to the 15% down, I think that number is coming from Blackball, where they have 15% fewer people riding the coho right now compared to last year. The merchants are not exactly feeling that right now. So, I was on CTV yesterday talking about that. for a second. And the merchants I have reached out to are doing okay. And they haven't noticed things being slower, which is not to say that, you know, we want Canadians coming here. We want lots of Canadians shopping downtown. It just, the merchants I have spoken to have not seen and are not feeling that hit yet, which is not to say that they won't in the coming months.
And then Carol Kowalski from Kitsap Bank says Port Townsend, Bainbridge Island, Gig Harbor are all Main Street programs that Kitsap Bank supports through B&O tax credit program every year. Actively advocating for PA in Bremerton and look forward to partnering and supporting. She's there online.
Great, thank you.
We're
Julie
excited,
Hatch and I have
Sam.
spoken a little bit
Good.
about Kitsap Bank, and you know, Kitsap Bank is a wonderful sponsor of so many main streets, and we're really lucky to have them in town. So we'll be chatting. Are there any other questions right now?
Let's see, one more. You mentioned taxes being a benefit. What sort of tax and who is the beneficiary?
Sure. Well, that's a wonderful segue to my slide that's up right now. There is one of the really cool parts about being a Main Street designated community is that there is a Main Street tax credit program. And so this program exists and it is available to any business that is operating within the geographic boundaries of a main street. And so it is a way to get businesses that are operating in Main Street to keep their B&O tax dollars local. It's really freaking cool. So basically the way it works is a business will make a donation to the Port Angeles Waterfront District. They can then apply for a tax credit through the Department of Revenue's website for up to 75% of that donation to the Waterfront District to come off of their B&O tax. So the money is still flowing through Olympia, but it comes back to us. And there is like essentially a membership fee, right? 25% of the money that you would give to the Waterfront District, you wouldn't be able to deduct off of your taxes, right? So it's not 100% deduction, which is important to know and just, you know, let you know about that upfront, right? But what that does, especially for, you know, businesses with high revenues, is it allows the Waterfront District to then keep that money and utilize it for things like cleaning parking lots, you know, or cleaning the streets, or, you know, making donations to 4PA so we have extra trash pickups, right? So it's a way that, you know, when we're in a community like Port Angeles where, you know, there's not a lot of capital here, but we sure do get a lot of unfunded mandates from Olympia. It feels kind of good to be able to take that money and keep it in our town, right? So this is the tax credit program, and you know, being aware of this is so the reason this B&O tax credit is here is one of the reasons why we're looking at Main Street boundaries and potentially expanding them out a little bit. And being more than just what the Waterfront District is. So here is kind of one of the ideas our board has been kicking around. This is not final by any means. And I'd love to have a conversation with the folks on this chat about this right now, or later on through email if you want. But so these boundaries would be essentially from the south side of 2nd Street to the water and north to south, and then Peabody Street to just a little bit west of Tumwater. The reason for these proposed boundaries would be to potentially include the future Marine Trade Center, you know, including businesses like Westport or Platypus would be really nice. You know, Platypus has offered their support to the Waterfront District. So, you know, these are just some thoughts, right? One of our issues is that as a main street, we don't necessarily want our boundaries to be so large, like the entire town, so then it muddies what our mission is. Because if we were collecting B&O tax from 8th Street, we would have to be providing services to 8th Street. We don't want to be providing services to 8th Street. But the waterfront is the waterfront. And, going a little further west, even though it starts to get a bit industrial, the Olympic Discovery Trail is very important to us. And that corridor out to Edith's Hook is something that we're looking to improve in the next 5 years. So, I can see a pitch for something like this. So yeah, and then we've also considered going up Lincoln Street a little bit to include Safeway, which is another high revenue generating business. So, this is something that our board is continuing to shoot back and forth and have some discussions on. Super open to input from the public. We'll put a little survey out through, our email list and Facebook in the coming weeks to get people's input on this. There's no real downside to having your business included in a Main Street boundary. You don't have to participate in the tax credit program. But there is really only upsides. And for us as an organization, the main downside we have to watch out for is expanding too much. So it muddies, we're not able to maintain a level of deliverable to everybody within our Main Street. Are there any questions about that?
I just wanted to highlight that because we're talking about B&O credit, B&O taxes, and there's a state B&O tax. This is a tangent, but I think it's really interesting that most cities in Washington State have their own B&O tax, and none of the cities in our county have implemented that. I just put in the chat the link to the Department of Revenue site that shows what the tax rates are for other cities. So I've always thought it was funny that Everett would, as they tried to attract businesses, that they say, if you create 100 new jobs that are high wage jobs, we will cut your B&O tax rate, city B&O tax rate in half for the first 3 years. And that's a tax incentive they offer. And I've always said, we don't have one. You get zero forever if you come to a city in Clallam County. So, yeah, that's just something to know that our cities have not elected to do that, to place that additional burden on businesses in our county. And we do have more questions, Sam, in the chat, if you don't mind if I ask them. First, Lena mentions that she also, as a bookkeeping firm, has supported the Main Street program in the past. It's a great way to invest in the community. And then Stephen Paleo asks, how much has Port Townsend generated from the Main Street tax credit program in the past 5 or 10 years? Do you know?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't have a specific number. I don't have quite that relationship yet to get their budget. But yes, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. Okay. So, it gives you a real operating budget.
Mm-hmm. And so I know that they've expanded the program so that the B&O you can, as a business, direct the B&O tax credit program to go to loans through CDFIs, commercial, what is it? CDFI, community financial institution. I can't remember the D. Yeah. Community development financial institution. So I guess a business can identify where they want the money to go.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So there's a really good, just kind of quick presentation, or 5 slides of PDFs of how you can designate on the DOR website, to go to like the Waterfront District or a CDFI. And it would be nice for Port Angeles to have a CDFI here. Do we?
Well, we do have one. It's Johanna Barty runs it. It's Jamestown. Capital, it's called. And they will loan money, and they have a good amount of funds now that they've received where they can loan money out to businesses. And it's not just, they will loan businesses to non-tribal businesses in the county.
That's awesome. I was familiar with that one. I think it's up to $20,000.
She was saying 50.
50. Oh, that's wonderful. That's great.
I
And
believe,
it's a pretty
yep.
low interest rate too.
They'll take on more risk than other businesses would.
That's great. Are there any other questions in here?
Yes, let's see. John says, you have mentioned Facebook. Have you thought about using Nextdoor for volunteerism and to get the ear of residents in PA?
That's a great idea. I haven't, but now I will.
All right. And Carol put in the chat, information about Jamestown Capital's loans that they offer, if anyone's interested.
Cool. All right. Well, if anybody in the future has any comments on, potential Main Street boundaries, you've got about 4 to 6 weeks to get them into me to have any actual input before they're just set. Once we do set them, there is discussion that we can amend them in the future, and it's not too difficult to do so. So, there is the potential that we will go up Lincoln Street a little bit at some point in the future, but not today, not tomorrow. Port Townsend Main Street has 2 non-contiguous Main Street corridors. So they have their Water Street section, and then they have their Uptown as well, but they do not have a corridor that goes between them. So it's pretty loosey-goosey like that. All right. And so it is worth mentioning that, as an organization, we are still looking at potentially increasing the parking business improvement area. Right now, the PBIA, you can see it in the black dotted lines. This was, again, drawn up in the 80s when our downtown looked different and operated differently as well. So there's some notable exclusions from the PBIA right now. Big part of Red Lion is not in, the Port Angeles Inn is not in, and Field Hall is not in our PBIA. And that's just, that's not accurate. So our proposed expansion is within the yellow boundaries. It would basically go east to Peabody Street, south to the south side of 2nd Street. So that's to include all of those hotels up on the bluff. And then west to Valley Street. And so that's the proposed PBIA expansion. We're in the process of reaching out to PBIA membership to see if there's desire to do this right now. If there isn't desire to do it, so what that means is businesses that are within the expansion zone are like, nah, I don't want to do this. We're not going to do it. A lot of things have been changing in the last year. And so when we first came up with this plan to expand our PBIA, we weren't aware of, the city is going to be expanding the central business district right now and renaming it as well, potentially to the Waterfront district. So our commercial zoning, our downtown commercial zoning designation is going to expand. That's happening. And those boundaries are being discussed right now. And that's happening at the comprehensive plan update at the city level, right? So we also, now that we're engaging with Main Street, it maybe doesn't make sense for us to be expanding the PBIA. So, this isn't necessarily something that we are pushing at this point, but we're still discussing it a little bit because we have been discussing it. So it's just worth bringing up. It can get a little confusing when you talk about all of these different boundaries. What's the zoning designation? What's the PBIA? What is PBIA? How's that different from Main Street? My eyes glaze over just talking about that. So it's important, that we're consistent in our messaging, but that's just so, the community is aware that, we'll be reaching out directly to people that are within the potential expansion zone and expanding or not based on their desire. So, how you want to get involved if you're interested in getting involved. We have monthly public meetings for Elevate Port Angeles. It's always on the last Monday of the month from 6 to 7 p.m. This month, it's going to be at Anime Cat. And then I'm always looking for more smart people who have some spare time on their hands and haven't already been recruited to another cause. So, we need stakeholders to get involved. And there is a bit of a vibe of burnout amongst stakeholder participation in some of these community efforts based on things that have happened in the past. It's a new day and a new page. And I would invite you, if you burnt out on public participation in the past, it's a little different with us. And we do try to have some fun. And then, we always have physical volunteer efforts as well. We have a Tuesday morning plucking posse. Every first Saturday of the month, we're working on the Welcoming Vista. And then, we're game for other ideas. If you see of some big issue that needs to be dealt with, for instance, we're going to be taking down that mural on the side of Bar Hop in the coming weeks because, you've only had 3 panels up and the other 2 are down and it looks awful. And it's the first thing people see when they come into our country off of the Coho. It's terrible. So that's another example of a Braun volunteer effort. And then finally, we're always looking for sponsorships. We are for sale. So, if you want to get your name in front of some good efforts, let me know. And with that, I'll open it up to conversation. Any questions folks have or comments?
Any questions for Sam? Okay, well, I'm not seeing any. No one's hand is raised, so, oh, yep, we do have one. Go ahead, James.
So when we have questions for Sam, I question your sanity.
So does my wife.
Hey, thank you.
So why do you say that, James?
Oh, he is just so vibrant and hardworking and positive. And we just need more people like Sam in our community.
Well, good. Nice to hear.
Thanks, James.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, not hearing any. Thank you so much, Sam, for joining us and all the work that you do for Port Angeles. It's really needed, and there are some great things happening, so we need to focus on that and build on them. And with that, I am going to call it a morning. Enjoy your day, everyone. Thank you.